There are a ton of guns in Enlisted, but which ones are the best? Something I like to do in games is compare the stats of things, how they feel against each other, and figure out which is the best overall. I wanted to put together a list of the best infantry weapons, ensuring that peace and love will be spread in the comments, and nobody will end up disagreeing with me or each other and starting a war, right? Before we get into the ranking of the weapons, starting from the bottom with 20 and ending at the best gun number 1, let's cover some ground rules for this ranking. Firstly, I'm going to cover these weapons in a series of videos, separating them by their tier, but more accurately their battle rating. This is so that I can say that the Winchester is a fantastic weapon, but obviously, compared to an STG-44, there is a bit of a gap in power between these guns. Secondly, I'm going to try and cover these weapons objectively, offering a statistical comparison, but in the case of close calls, use some subjective opinions and experiences to make a case for why a weapon is better than another. I'm by no means the god end all of Enlisted, but I have a lot of experience in shooters and usually do pretty well in Enlisted. Furthermore, I am going to include all weapons in the game, not just limiting this to the tech trees. There is one problem, however. I don't own every weapon in Enlisted. So, for guns that I don't own, I'm going to rely upon the opinions of high-level players or my experience when stealing the weapon from enemy soldiers. Lastly, this is just my opinion and my list. You are absolutely fine to love weapons which I think are terrible. Putting together this list is just my way of sharing my knowledge and sparking discussion. Hopefully, you can either learn from this list which weapons to use, or learn something you didn't before. Up first, or in last place, although still very good weapons, is the M1921AC Prohibition. This is a Thompson with a 50 round drum mag that they sold for 2,960 gold, I believe for a pack of 4 of them. This is by far the best Thompson in the Allies' arsenal, with a crazy .21 accuracy. SMGs really don't stack up that well in BR5, so you won't see many on this list. Sadly though, this isn't even the best Thompson in the game. That goes to our 19th place, the NKVD Thompson, with a 100 round mag for the USSR. Both of these Thompsons have the aforementioned .21 accuracy, which separates them from the rest of the SMGs and allows them to almost keep up with their replacement, the assault rifle. The Prohibition has ludicrous reload speeds and recoil, at only 4 vertical and 4 horizontal. The NKVD has a bit more recoil at 11 by 4, but the 100 round mag is what is making me give it the higher position. SMGs are incredibly hard to justify at this tier, and being able to at least spray out 100 bullets rather than 50 is one of the only advantages these guns have over assault rifles. In 18th, we have a brand new addition in the Japanese M2 Carbine Saw-Off variant. Does it annoy anybody else that this is not called the Sawn-Off variant? This weapon boasts a higher rate of fire than the American M2 Carbine, but is more limited in its range capabilities. This weapon is still capable of shredding enemies within 50 or less meters, edging out versus the Thompsons with their terrible muzzle velocity. The lack of front sight on this gun could make it awkward to use, but personally I love that there isn't anything obstructing my view of the target, and I really enjoy using this gun. It's a lot of fun and you should try it out. Up next is yet another M2 Carbine variant. The M2A1 Carbine is a fun little rifle to run around with. It also has a faster fire rate than the regular M2, making it crazy in close quarters as well. It's a bit more capable at range than the Saw-Off due to its front sight post existing and lower dispersion. This weapon also has an insane aim down sight speed of 1.1. This is as fast as pistols. The only reason that I'm keeping this weapon lower on the list is it's hindered in its classification. This weapon can only be brought on the likes of assaulters, tankers and guerrillas. If it could be brought on specialists en masse, and we had a larger quantity of them to use, it would go a little bit higher. For number 16, we find our first machine gun on this list. The MG42 finally has a 100 round belt, and it puts it to work. The rate of fire is the exact sweet spot I'm looking for personally when using a machine gun. It's just high enough that enemies will definitely fall when you shoot them, but not too high that it doesn't end up wasting all of its ammo. This is definitely the best Axis machine gun, perfectly balancing to mow down droves of Soviets and Americans when deployed to its bipod.
Number 15.
AN M2 Stinger. this event MG has an absurd 200 round magazine. It has the third highest rate of fire in BR5 for machine guns, but this is only an upside, as who cares about conserving ammo when your box has 200 bullets? This machine gun also has best in class bullet velocity. It's a little held back by its horizontal recoil, but honestly, this volume of fire with this ammo capacity is bonkers. Now, we finally get to the OG M2 carbine. This is the original top tier American select fire rifle. It gets bonus points for that classification, being able to be brought on riflemen, engineers, radio operators, etc. It really is a bit more like an assault rifle though. Its lower damage for this class and the 30 round mag make it a reliable assault weapon. It'll lose out to other factions' select fires at range, but allies have options for that now, and you can use this weapon to facilitate close range firepower. Unlucky number 13, we see one of the worst falls from grace for any weapon in the game, I think. The AVS-36 has long been a less relevant rifle, but recently it was buffed time and time again and brought in line with the AVT-40, gaining improved recoil and starting in full auto instead of semi. This became a real powerhouse, and the go-to option for BR5 Soviets. But, in the latest patch, some criminal maniacs suggested on the forums that this gun be buffed to 880 rate of fire. For some even crazier reason, the developers listened. This gun went from a good ranged option, boasting a higher 15.8 damage for this class, but with only 15 rounds to the magazine, this rate of fire is completely unsustainable. You can fire for less than a full second. It's really sad that this weapon has fallen so far down on my list here, but that's the reality of the situation. So far down in fact, that I couldn't rate it above the FG42 version 1, and its grenade launcher version. These two paratrooper rifles also feature an absurd rate of fire, at 990, but with a larger magazine of 20, this is a little bit more feasible. You're still going to struggle to not accidentally shoot half your mag in some scenarios, leaving you reloading after every 2 or 3 kills every time. But the FG42s do have bipods, so at least if you position and set up, you can accurately fire 20 rounds into a squad and wipe them out. I really never thought I'd see the FG42 Pattern 1 being better than the AVS-36. Also, I would rate the normal version over the grenade launcher version since that one lacks the bipod. Nearly to the top 10, in spot 11 we have the STG-44 and its suppressed variant for the new Werewolves Guerrilla Squad. The godfather of all assault rifles scores well here, with easy to use recoil and accuracy, making it reliable at taking out targets. For a long time, this was one of the premier Axis weapons, as you could bring a lot of them to the battle. It's still a fantastic option for Axis, but over time has been power creeped by new additions. I'd love to see the devs give this gun some love, maybe increasing its damage to 13.9? Who knows what we'll see, except right now, we're about to see number 10. Do you guys smell that? I think that's Soviet bias. The AS-44 Model 5 is pretty much a clone of the STG-44 inside the Soviet tech tree. But not all clones are made equal, as this gun has slightly increased stats in a few categories, making it just a bit better of an option against the Sturmgewehr. Slightly higher rate of fire, more muzzle velocity, improved accuracy, oh, and don't forget a bayonet, which reduces recoil, allows you to bayonet charge, and also makes your soldiers very deadly in melee combat. The AS-44 is the definition of Soviet bias. The only advantage remaining for the STG is that it has quicker reloads, but that don't matter if you get killed by the AS-44. Thankfully, for the Axis, they one-up the Soviets with the introduction of the full auto version of the Gewehr 43 chambered in the 8mm Kurz round. Me when I need to reach 300 words on my essay. This weapon used to be a burst fire weapon, but shortly before the removal of the Gold Order shop, they made this weapon fully automatic with 550 rate of fire. You could argue the AS-44 and STG are more powerful, they shoot faster, but the Kurz benefits from the lower recoil, making this weapon incredibly easy to use. I'm not joking when I say this thing has basically zero recoil. It also sports a 10.1 damage model, allowing it to kill soldiers without the Vitality perk in close ranges, less than about 13 meters. If the enemy has Vitality or Soviets are wearing body armor, this is negated, but I think it's fair enough to place the Kurtz slightly above the other two assault rifles here due to that ability. This weapon is also treated as a rifle, so can be brought on specialists. Perhaps a controversial opinion here, but above the previous three weapons stands the newest addition to the Allies' infantry weapons for BR5. The M1944 Hyde is an excellent assault rifle, with best-in-class rate of fire, apart from the new Japan saw-off, allowing it to kill targets the fastest. This gun has really nice sights with basically no obstruction, and really comfortable stats in every other category. I'm going to go on record and say this is the best assault rifle in the game that is below 12.6 damage. In 7th place, we have the old king of Enlisted, the AVT-40. This weapon is by no means bad. You could bring this on every soldier in your army and decimate the enemy. Low recoil, comfortable rate of fire, great accuracy and sight picture, this weapon is ideal in Enlisted. However, the passage of time has not been too kind despite the buffs this weapon has received. In comparison to its peers, it is held back by the 15 round magazine that Soviets suffer with on the AVT-40 and AVS-36. Magazine capacity is one of the most important factors in determining a weapon's strength, and so I have to give it a lower placement than other factions' select fire rifles. However, Soviets stay winning in 6th place with their legendary RD-44 machine gun. This has for a long time been the strongest machine gun in all of Enlisted. This does pack a lower damage than other MGs, but it also has the softest movement speed penalty. With perks, you can almost move at the same speed as a regular soldier with this weapon. But, in the infinite wisdom of the developers, they decided to buff what many considered to already be the strongest machine gun. They removed a class-specific debuff that affects all machine guns with one exception, Vickers Berthier, but only from the RD-44. This weapon no longer has a movement accuracy penalty while aiming down sights. This is huge, as you no longer have to remain stationary for about a second before this weapon shoots accurately where you are aiming. The RD-44 has become one of the strongest and most viable weapons in the game overnight. It's practically an assault rifle with a 100 round mag, which is pretty unfair. Before we get into the top 5, I wanted to cover some honourable mentions that didn't quite make it on the list. Firstly is the AS-44 Model 4. This is almost the same as the Model 5, with a few stats shaved off, but the main issue is that the squad this gun is locked to has a terrible perk setup, not having access to Vitality perks, the most important perk in the whole game. Secondly is the Kernder's MG, which barely loses out to the much more accurate Thompsons I placed in 19th and 20th. If there was any more room on this list for an SMG, the Kernder's would be there with its nice 6.8 damage and 1150 rate of fire. Also left off was the Sniper MKB-42H and the Sniper AVS-36. If you really want a scoped option, these weapons are fantastic, although after the changes, maybe not so much for the AVS. The Sniper variant of the MKB is actually better than the SDG Sniper. It randomly has better stats and a faster reload. The only problem is that these guns are locked to Sniper soldiers, which have awkward perks and also no Vitality. A machine gun I left off this list is the Vickers No. 1 Mark II Paratrooper MG. This gun is really good, but I gave the spot to the Stinger, as the Vickers has only 100 round mags and a lot more recoil. Also, somehow you can alternative reload the Stinger quicker than the Vickers, despite the 100 round difference in their mag sizes. The final honourable mention goes to the MP43/1, which is an earlier model clone of the STG, but I couldn't find space to include it, and it's not the iconic STG. Breaking into the top 5 is the comeback of the FG-42-2. This weapon has eternally struggled against the Soviet body armor. The only faction that has to fight body armor is placed at a heavy disadvantage by it. However, the patch before this one increased the damage of the FG-42 rifles to 15.3. allowing them to overcome body armor, at least up to 19 meters. The FG42 still has some issues, but having 20 round magazines and nice recoil make this a weapon to be feared once again. This gun doesn't have a bayonet, despite having a built-in one to the gun, and instead has a bipod. Less useful overall, but still a utility option. Maybe in the future this weapon will have its weird outlier stats such as hipfire accuracy corrected, and maybe a bayonet added. I mentioned earlier that the Hyde was the best assault rifle in the game, with the caveat of under 12.6 base damage. That's because the best assault rifle in the game is actually the Fedorov Aftermath. This weapon received one of the least deserved buffs in history. It now deals 13.9 damage when upgraded, allowing it to defeat soldiers with vitality. It was arguably already the best assault rifle before this, so you can imagine how shocked I was to see this thing getting a buff. And also all of the Soviet stuff that was already the best, like the RD-44. The Fedorov Aftermath has a little bit more recoil than its peers, but not a big deal in my opinion, as it has an incredible .25 dispersion, where other assault rifles range from 0.4 to 0.5. If you play BR5 as Axis or Soviets, you have probably seen a lot of Fedorovs in the matchmaker. This weapon is incredible, and the dopamine you get from wielding such a powerhouse is unmatched. The only negative I can say for this weapon is that it's locked to assaulters, and that another similar weapon places higher on this list. Moving on to the top 3, these weapons are incredibly close in performance, and you could hear different players putting these 3 in a different order. Maybe even I would place these in a different order depending on the day. I think I'm going to break some hearts by putting the T20 and its alternative version, the T20E1, in 3rd place. This weapon has allowed allies to stand up to Axis and Japan at BR5, changing the tide of battle, and what better than something as iconic as the Garand to turn full auto and dominate the battlefield. This weapon has it all: a 20 round mag, 15.3 damage, 2.3 second reloads, best in slot velocity at 830, tied with other weapons as the 3rd best muzzle speed in the game. The T20 is a phenomenal weapon, its only drawback being a slower aim down sight speed than the 2 weapons above it. Also, I'd say the T20 is better than the E1 version, as the E1 uses a bipod rather than a bayonet and has a slightly longer reload due to its closed bolt. Finishing strong in 2nd place is the Japanese Type A automatic. This weapon is everything the Fedorov Aftermath is, but better. 30 rounds instead of 25, best in class accuracy at .15, a bayonet and a bipod, and next to no recoil. This weapon can hold back an apocalyptic level threat, eating entire squads for breakfast, lunch and dinner. For a long time, this has been my favourite weapon in the game, turning Enlisted into easy mode and allowing you to pull off things you just can't do with 20 round magazines. But this weapon has one fatal flaw. One flaw that has gnawed at me enough to demote it to 2nd place rather than remaining as my best gun in Enlisted. The operation action of this weapon obstructs your view. This is not a big deal, since it's quick enough that you can still see most of what you're shooting at. However, the developers have failed to resolve a critical bug that has existed for at least 12 months at this point. Not every player will experience the occlusion bug, in which objects and soldiers turn completely invisible while you are shooting this gun.
I'm the Invisible Man!
If this bug is fixed, there really is nothing holding this gun back, but since I suffer from this catastrophe, I have to give the 1st place slot to none other than the brand new reinforcement and resupply for the Soviets. The AVT-40 has been reincarnated, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, this time reborn with a 20 round magazine. I'm not going to call this gun the AVT-4020, this is the AVT-420. This legendary armament is my top weapon in Enlisted, featuring less recoil than the AVT-40 used to have, and oddly enough, the same recoil as the newly buffed AVT-40 with the 15 round mag, despite the developers' intention to give the 15 round version less recoil to keep it as a viable option. You could consider the rate of fire being lower at 660 compared to the T20, FG42 etc. to be a downside, but I actually think that for a weapon that is frequently one-shot killing, lower rate of fire, within reason, is an advantage. This gun is more comfortable to use as the effective recoil is reduced by firing slower, and you are much more capable of ensuring all 20 of your rounds go to use, rather than firing too quickly at soldiers who have already died. With 15.3 damage, 0.18 accuracy, a brilliant 0.8 ADS speed, and crucially now a 20 round magazine, with good reloads, 2.7 seconds and 2.2 seconds alternative, I firmly believe the AVT 420 is now the best gun in all of Enlisted. Do you agree? Is there weapons that you believe should have had a spot in this list? Are my top 3 rage bait and clearly the FG42 is the best gun? I really would love to hear all of your feedback about my list, and I hope you guys look forward to me doing this for the other tiers in the game. Look out for my YouTube poll asking which tier I should do next. I hope you have learned about Enlisted, and maybe this has helped you in choosing which faction to grind next. I mean, Soviets are kinda broken, no? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a bougie day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye!